Hello, everybody. Sorry, a little microphone trouble there. My apologies for being a little bit late today, uh, but great to be back here on the B78 Endurance Hub for our weekly webinar. Again, if you haven't had a chance, you can check out our previous webinars. They're at the B78EnduranceHub.com. And the goal here again is really to touch on a whole bunch of different topics in the endurance sport space, primarily in the world of triathlon, really to give you a foundation of knowledge so that when you decide that you may be going to tackle a triathlon or endurance event, you're sort of armed with some knowledge that'll be really, really helpful. Uh, the topics we cover are everything from equipment choices to the physiology that's involved in sport to race tactics. We're going to kind of tackle everything. Today, what I'd like to do is just dive into one of the three sports, that's swimming, and give you five really simple but effective things that you can do that will help you be a better swimmer. I think for the most part, swimming is generally the most challenging of the three events for people, unless, of course, you grew up swimming. A lot of people come to triathlon with a competitive swimming background, and certainly that's a huge advantage for them. Of the three sports, I would argue that swimming is definitely the toughest one to learn as an adult in our later years. My own journey with swimming was I was a late starter. I grew up doing very different sports, and I didn't really start swimming and really training for swimming until I was, probably late teens, and that's very, very late. Competitive swim programs start kids very, very young, and if you develop, technically really well at a young age, it stays with you basically for a lifetime. You may come in and out of actual fitness, but that technique is usually always there, and that's a muscle memory thing. When you ingrain good swimming techniques from an early age, it's much more easy to carry that through as an adult. And it was very tough for me to work on and build good technique, or as good as I could get technique in my later years. It certainly was a challenge. Now, my own journey in the sport of triathlon happened at a time when the sport of triathlon was quite young. And as a result, I feel like you could come into it fairly late and still have success. But certainly now, if you're a young triathlete and you're looking to maybe make the World Cup or go to an Olympic Games, you really have to get cracking on the swim portion of it at a very young age, I think, to have success. But back in my day, everybody was coming from something else. Maybe you were a runner or a biker or a swimmer to start, or maybe like me, you came from a completely different sport altogether. But the sport was young enough and still in the development stages, which meant that we could come from other places and still have success, without having that big background from a very early age. But now, on the age group side of things, certainly if Ironman's on your bucket list, or a half Ironman, or some other events, and you're starting late, that's okay. You can still get to a very high degree of competency um, in the three sports. Running and biking, I think, are things we do as kids naturally anyway. Like most people learn to ride a bike at a very young age, and of course, we're bipedal animals, so we're on our feet for the most part. Most people are. Um, and so the running part of it isn't that difficult either, at least to pick up from a technical standpoint, because most of us have been doing it for a very, very long time. So today I would like to share with you just five things that I think you can do. Just five little tips, and again, you could ask 100 coaches and they might all give you five different tips. So don't take these as the golden standard of what's going to, make you a better swimmer. These are just five things that I think you can do that will really help. So let's get cracking. So the first tip that I would like to give you, which might seem very, very obvious, is if you have the ability and you have something in your community that offers a master's swim group, or swim lessons, or private lessons with a swim coach, you should absolutely do it. So obviously there's an expense associated with this. But I think in terms of bang for your buck, this is some of the best money that you can spend. Masters groups are usually fairly inexpensive. They're going to be a monthly fee, or, whatever they charge, maybe a drop-in fee for their masters group. But what you're getting here is a couple of things. With a master's group, first of all, you get eyes on your stroke. So yes, there might be 10, 15, 20 people in the pool for that master's workout, but at least you have a coach that hopefully has some expertise and some knowledge in how to swim. It's actually going to take a look at your stroke and break it down a little bit for you and give you some things to work on. So yes, you might not be getting one-on-one private individual attention, but you get some eyes on your stroke, and you should get some feedback if the master swim coach or the group that you're part of, is mindful of the technical side of it. The other thing I really like about master swim groups is that you learn how swim workouts kind of roll out. So, swimming is unique in that uh, most programs will have, you'll be doing sets and reps for the entire thing. So it's not like running where you say, oh, I'm going to go out and run for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, or I'm going to go run 5K or 10K, and you kind of just go out the door and away you go. Swim workouts are very different. Swim workouts have a high degree of structure if you're with a group. There's a number of reasons for this, and I'm going to touch on them in a bit, but there's lots of structure to swimming. So if you're brand new and you're like, oh, I'm just going to go to the pool and swim, most people just get in and they have a set number of lengths or a set distance that they hope to swim, and they get in and they do that. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. But to develop as a swimmer, you really need to break things up and have a real structure to the workout. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. So a master's group will really open your eyes to that. The third reason a master's group I think is really effective is you have the energy of people. I found swimming on my own quite tough. I could do it. I was disciplined and I would get to the pool and do my workouts if I had to on my own, but nothing compared to swim workouts with a group. I always pushed myself harder. There was a fun dynamic. You have banter with your teammates. And, if your energy is low when you get to the pool, you've got maybe 5, 10, 15 other people there who kind of bring the energy up and suck you along. So that's another huge benefit. There's a social component, but there's also a group dynamic component where, it kind of bring your energy up a fair bit, which is really great. My own journey in swimming really started, I would kind of go to the pool by myself initially, when I was very, very beginning, and I would, maybe try and get workouts from a friend that was a competitive swimmer. I remember she would help me sort of piece together some workouts. It was well before the online world where you could just do a Google search and probably find 1,000 different swim workouts. And then that evolved to getting in with some masters groups. And then I went to the University of Guelph and I joined their like official masters program, which was really great. I mean, we had like 30 swimmers in the pool. And that was like the first time I was really immersed in swimming and swimming culture and swim workouts. And it was all adults of varying levels, everything from true beginner all the way up to ex-competitive swimmers that were just looking to stay fit and like the group dynamic. I got a lot out of it. It was awesome. The coaching was fantastic. And I had a structure. I was like, well, my swim workouts are now at 5 o'clock on these days or whatever it was. From there, it evolved to joining the swim team at the University of Guelph, which was like a step up because now suddenly we had 6, 7, 8, 9 workouts a week, which was amazing. Coaching was really great. In fact, the coaching was the same. So at the university, the coaches for the swim team also coached the masters group. So, I was getting similar, and more quality coaching in both groups. But the university team, what it really did is up things significantly. I went from maybe 4 or 5 swims a week to 6 to 9 swims a week, and that was a huge game changer. The other thing that was so beneficial about the swim team is that I started to compete. So I would go to the swim meets, and make no mistake, I was at the bottom of the barrel for those. I was way at the back, but I swallowed my pride and I tried all kinds of different strokes and different distances and different events. And again, just another type of stimulus that really helped me excel and get better than I would have on my own in the pool for sure. So the other part of this is swim lessons. So, if you don't have a master's group, or maybe you can't meet at you can't go to the workouts at the time they have them, or you just don't want to, highly, highly, highly recommend acquiring a coach for 1 or 2 or 3 private lessons. Maybe you do one a month. A lot of it's budget related for people. It's not cheap to go that route because you're paying for someone's one-on-one time. Um, but you will just get so much value from it. It's such a highly technical sport. You can just go in there and spin your arms on your own for an hour and not really get anywhere. But what a coach will do is break your stroke down. If they're a very competent coach, hopefully they'll give you some of the foundation principles to work on so that you can get that lesson. And then maybe you go off and do your own workouts, but you have 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 technical things that you need to really tune into and change. Because ultimately, if you make technical changes in the water, that will hopefully lead to not only more speed, but more efficiency. So you'll be maybe going the same pace, but it takes less energy. But ideally, you're going faster and taking less energy. The top swimmers on the planet are incredibly efficient. They're technically very, very sound. They've been swimming probably their whole life, and they're very efficient as well. So it costs them less energy to go, very, very quickly. And a swim lesson with a good coach or instructor will really help you do that. So highly, highly recommend. This is like one of the best things that you can do. So, this kind of goes along with you get a lesson with 100 swim coaches, you might get 100 different tips. Hopefully not. Hopefully they are, have some common ground on what you need to learn. But one of the things that I think is most important to learn is your balance in the water. And I won't go too far into it, but understanding fore and aft balance and rotational balance. So, fore aft balance, I would say, is like the balance between what's happening at the front of your body or your head and what's happening, down lower in your body or around your bum and your legs. So, a swimmer who's very competent and high level will have very good fore aft balance. And by this, I mean, the positioning of their body, their head or their torso in relation to their legs and their bum is fairly straight across, meaning it's not higher than their bum. So what you'll see with beginner swimmers a lot is that the head height and the torso are much higher in the water, and the bum and the legs sink. And if you can think about that, your body's basically on an angle, and it's a very, very inefficient way to swim. But this is the position that a lot of people end up in for various reasons. And there's some really simple things that you can do to work on and feel your fore aft balance. One of the most effective little drills that I would recommend is simply, kicking on your front with your face in the water and your hands at your side. So a really, really light kick, and you're not going to move very quickly, and when you need to take a breath, you lift your head straight up. So not to the side like you would in a normal freestyle stroke, but you lift your head up to the front. And what you'll notice when this happens is that usually the bum drops in the water. And then when you put your face back in, the bum will kind of come back up to the surface. And that little drill is great because it'll give you a heightened awareness of what is happening to your body when your head lifts and your bum drops. Like you'll feel it. Face goes back in, and usually the bum comes back up to the surface. So, understanding fore aft balance and doing, a drill like that kind of exaggerates that feeling is a really, really valuable thing to do. Along with that is what I would call rotational balance. So swimming's unique in that, not only do we have to have, your head and bum sort of in alignment, so not on a crazy angle where the bum's a lot lower, but we also have to be balanced when we rotate. So in swimming, we're rotating side to side. Now I'm talking about the freestyle stroke, not butterfly and not breaststroke. But freestyle and backstroke, there's a rotation that happens with the body. And this action, when we kind of are getting used to it, can kind of throw people a little bit because face is in the water and it can be a bit, disorienting. And so learning rotational balance is really important. And another drill that's very similar to the first one that you can do that's really effective is simply just kicking on your side. Usually we have the arm that's like lower in the water is straight up above our head. So we're kind of like arm up and head on that arm. And really, the goal with a simple drill like that is just to kind of get balance when we're on our side. Now, you have to play around with how far on your side you should go. So, we don't want to be very flat in the water, with our face down and our torso and everything facing down. But we also don't want to be too far over on our side or certainly not on our back. So, finding that kind of sweet spot in the middle of those two is really, really important. I would really encourage you to go onto YouTube and do a search for, kick on side drill. And hopefully you'll pull up an athlete who's very competent at that and get a good visual of what that actually looks like. So, without going too far down this rabbit hole, paying attention to how you're balanced in the water is what I'm trying to get across. So, where is my head in relation to my bum? Where is my kind of upper body in relation to my lower body? Are they fairly even in the water, or am I on an angle? That's what we're looking for. And can I rotate effectively? So can I kind of move side to side without going too far? So I'm not going like right on my side or on my back. And, am I comfortable kind of going out of that plane where I'm just like totally flat in the water? So paying attention to those two types of balance, really, really important. So I might take some flack for this. Again, you'll ask 100 coaches and maybe get 100 different opinions. About using equipment in general. One of the traps we don't want people to fall into is that the equipment like a pull buoy or fins or a snorkel or paddles, we don't want those things to become a crutch. And by that, I mean, we don't want to become dependent and reliant on them. Without them, we're kind of just floundering again. But I do think these tools, these pieces of equipment that we can use in the water can serve a real purpose. And I think if you're just starting out as a swimmer, honestly, one of the most effective tools that you can use are fins. So these are, swimming fins. So you put them on your feet, and when you kick, you're going to move a little bit quicker. So it's like what you would see if someone was scuba diving. Now, I'll asterisk that by saying they're not scuba diving fins. They're certainly not that big. A lot of times pools or aquatic facilities will have a bin full of fins, and those are usually appropriate. The reason why fins are so great, in my opinion, is if you're a truly beginner swimmer, they're going to do a number of things. Number one is they're going to help that body position. So that fore aft balance that I was talking about in the previous slide, fins are really going to help give you a feel for what it's like when the upper body's a little higher in the water, which is often tricky for people. So that's number one. Number two is fins are going to help you move more quickly through the water. So a true beginner swimmer learning freestyle, sometimes it can just be exhausting and very, very difficult to create any momentum in the water at all. It can be like very, very challenging. But if you put some fins on, it's gonna make you move a little quicker through the water. And you don't have to kick that hard. That's the beauty. Like with fins on, you don't have to like suddenly kick your legs really hard. It's just gonna give you a little more speed so that you have a bit more momentum in the water, which is going to give you a feeling of what it's actually like to swim. The third thing I really like about fins is that, if you're a true beginner and let's say, head height or torso height is much higher in the water than your legs, so you're swimming on an angle, it's much more difficult to learn proper arm mechanics. So the actual mechanics that are required, the arm action that you're going to have for swimming is much more difficult when your body position's not correct. Fins give you a little more speed. They get the upper body or the lower body in the right position, and they take a little bit of the pressure off so that you can actually work on the arm mechanics a little more easily when you have the fins on. So I think they're a great tool to use if you're a true beginner. They're just going to give you lots of support in the back end and kind of allow you to work on these other things that are sometimes more challenging. I love this one. Do short intervals. So a lot of times when we talk about endurance sports, we harp on people for building up a big endurance base or an aerobic base, which is usually involves longer, slower miles. So if you have an endurance bike ride in the week, you're riding along with some buddies and you're going at a pace that you can chat at. Same with running. Maybe you're going to run, start at 45 minutes and build your way up to 60, 75, 90 minutes, maybe even a couple of hours of endurance running. And, those two sports, again, generally people's competency in those sports is much, much higher than swimming. If I told you to just jump in the water and swim, 3 kilometers straight, the chances of the stroke mechanics being pretty solid at the end is very, very low if you're a beginner swimmer. And generally, I think that's what people do. So again, they get excited about doing a triathlon or excited about starting swimming, and they get a certain distance that they want to swim. They're like, I'm going to go to the pool. I'm going to swim 1 kilometer. I'm going to swim 40 lengths, or I'm going to swim 50 lengths, or whatever it is. They jump in and they just start swimming and they don't stop until they're done. And usually what happens is maybe the first length or two, or maybe even 3 or 4 lengths is pretty good. Maybe the stroke mechanics are pretty good. And then they spend the next 35-ish lengths with poor stroke mechanics and moving very slowly. And yes, sure, you'll get a great workout because it's very inefficient, but it's not really helping you inch forward or get faster. So I love, love, love giving people short intervals to do. So true beginners, I might give them 40 times 25 meters. So that's like, the 25-meter pool, that's like 40 times one length, and maybe they get 5 or 10 seconds at each end. And the goal there is that they get frequent amounts of rest. So every length, they're getting a little bit of rest. They reset a little bit, and it just allows them to get back on good stroke mechanics with more frequency. And hopefully, the end result of that is that the stroke mechanics are better and that they're actually moving more quickly. If you did 40 lengths continuous, uh, you can do one length basically much faster than the average speed of that. And then you reset a little bit, you catch your breath, and then you do another one. And, I think the nervous system loves that. The nervous system loves patterning better habits. And with swimming in particular, it's just a really, really effective way to do it. Now, if you follow step one or my tip one and you join a master's group, what you're going to notice is with most, if not all swim groups, swim workouts are generally broken up in this way. Maybe not as short as 25-meter intervals, but usually the main sets of those workouts are always some kind of shorter interval than you might do in a race. It's rare that you're going to get in and swim 1,500 meters straight or 2 kilometers straight or an Ironman distance of 3.8 or 9 kilometers straight. It's just very rare in a swim workout that you ever do that. What they'll do instead is maybe you'll swim 15 times 100 meters and you'll get a little bit of rest after each 100. But the goal is to make sure you stay on a fairly deliberate and maybe faster pace. And the goal also with the frequent rest is that your stroke mechanics stay together a little bit better. So short intervals are, in my opinion, just such a great way to develop your swimming technique and your swimming speed. And then as you become, let's say you're starting off with 25-meter intervals, as you become more competent there and you gain some fitness there, now maybe you're doing 50-meter intervals or 75-meter intervals or 100-meter intervals. There's no wrong answer aside from, I think the right answer, I should say, is the one where, okay, I can hold my stroke together and hold a good pace for 100 meters. So I'm going to do 100-meter intervals and I'm going to take 10, 15, 20 seconds rest in between each one, reset, catch my breath, and then get back on that good pace and those good stroke mechanics. So short intervals, really, really great way to develop your swimming. And finally, last tip I'll give you today is frequency over epic. And what I mean by that is I think you're far better off to get into the pool 3 times a week for 1,000 meters than you are to get in once a week for 3,000 meters, if that makes sense. The body and the nervous system absolutely love repetition. They love frequency. So if you want to ingrain good stroke mechanics and become a better swimmer, uh, you're far better off to get in the water with a higher degree of frequency during the week than like one session weekly that's more epic, if that makes sense. So, something to consider, maybe not always realistic for people with jobs and families. But if you can make that happen, it's great. And if you are time constrained, with work and family, you can couple workouts up. So maybe you have a short, easy run to do, or maybe you can couple that up with a swim workout. So you get in for maybe you got an hour to commit. Maybe you get in the water for 30 minutes and you go for a 30-minute easy run. And 3 of those a week means you're getting a high degree of frequency, not only in swimming, but in running. So, lots of different ways to acquire that frequency rather than just one epic one every once in a while. That's all I got for you today. So again, let's have a quick review. If you can join a master's group or get some swim lessons, do it. Learning your balance, so fore-aft balance and rotational balance. Using fins to support the back end, give you a little more speed, take the pressure off the arms. Just an easier way to kind of get you going with good stroke mechanics and give you a feel for what it is to swim faster. Do short intervals, so break it up. Give yourself lots of frequent rest so you can keep getting back on good speed and good stroke mechanics. And frequency, really important. Way better to do 3 swim workouts a week that are shorter than one long one in the week with more time in between. That's it for today. Thanks so much for joining us. And head on over to the B78 Endurance Hub if you want to check out some of our older webinars. And we'll see you next week, same time, same place.